More Public Union put out a video. It's not just Wayfair. Why does all your furniture fall apart? I wanted to see it. Did I say More Public Union, not More Perfect Union? Well, you know, public ownership's on the mind, okay?
But shopping for furniture. So I've
not content stealing. More Perfect Union is a phenomenal channel. One of the very few that I watch on stream in a non-adversarial context. Not content stealing, not content stealing.
been looking for a coffee table recently, but shopping for furniture online sucks. You can't tell what anything really looks like or feels like. You can't test the couches.
Should never shop for furniture
I've also heard a lot
online.
of horror stories about new furniture falling apart quickly.
Hey, you guys notice, by the way, that these sectional couches are always like dog. Like, they look luxurious and comfortable, but the seats are always deep enough that when you sit with your back pressed up against the back cushion, you can't like put your feet down on the ground. Like, the spot here is too big for your butt and legs. So you have to sit with really bad posture. And this is also like a terrible way to lay while watching stuff, you know?
Test the couches.
I've also heard a lot of horror stories about new furniture falling apart quickly.
6 weeks in, this couch pills so badly.
I'm sitting here and all of a sudden, crack.
Ow, another nail!
I regret it so much, it makes me literally want to cry. I don't want the sofa anymore.
I figured I needed to shop in person, so I came to...
You have to use several cushions for back support. I think we should just maybe make furniture that doesn't hurt your back when you sit in it. I know this is a crazy thought. This is kind of like my take on clothing now. As an old man who has recurring back issues, I just have to say, it is crazy that by default, furniture feels bad to sit in now. You know? That's pretty wild.
Wayfair's new brick-and-mortar store in Chicago. I also asked a furniture expert to join me. Coco Ree Lemery spent years as a furniture designer for places like Pottery Barn and Williams-Sonoma. I have to say, looking around the store was super fun. Way better than scrolling on their website.
You can connect your TV sound to the table via Bluetooth, just like you always wanted.
But right away, Coco noticed two big things about the furniture there. First, almost everything was a cheap copycat of another design.
This gets very close to a Windsor chair. The wishbone chair is that one.
And second, a lot of stuff was low quality.
This is actually designed to go here. Here you go, little buddy.
It's not just Wayfair, it's becoming harder to find well-designed quality furniture, even if you're willing to spend a little extra.
IKEA too, yeah. IKEA's dog shit, man. IKEA furniture is really badly put together.
Price absolutely does not indicate quality in the furniture industry.
I wanted to know what does indicate quality. So I bought this little guy from Wayfair and this vintage table online with similar design
Holy
features.
shit, that looks nice.
I took them both to Coco's studio to run a few durability tests. What we found explained a lot about how furniture used to be made versus now, and what the future of furniture might look like.
I'm so here for this. I want the vintage table. Yeah, the crazy thing is, too, a lot of the reason why vintage tables are really good is, like, they're not producible anymore. Sorry, Grandpa. We can't make them. We don't know how, you know? Because a lot of them were made with old grain wood, and we don't have that anymore. Yeah, old growth wood, and we don't have that anymore. Like, we do, but it's really tough and expensive to get sometimes. So we don't have the technology. Old growth. You know when you go to Home Depot and you see all their big 2x4s in a section and they're like a light yellow and you can see the grain of the wood, like, or you can see the rings at the end grain and they're really far apart. That's because those trees were like speed grown to be harvested for 2x4 and they come apart pretty easy. You know, they like splinter at the edges. Whereas a lot of the older furniture is like made out of wood that's basically indestructible. I'm not even talking particle board. I'm talking about real wood, but it's the structure of trees that have been alive for 1 million years is much sturdier in a lot of cases.
There was no Wayfair or Overstock or Amazon when my parents bought their first home in the late 80s in Ohio. There wasn't even an IKEA in our
Hardwood versus softwood? No, I'm just talking about old growth. I'm just talking about whether or not the tree was like speed harvested for 2x4s. I mean, you don't make furniture out of 2x4s from Home Depot. I mean, yeah, in a lot of cases you make it from even worse stuff. You make it from particle board. Yeah. I'm just talking about like how like old the wood, but yeah, no, like if your furniture is made out of real 2x4 quality wood with a veneer on top of it, it'll be higher quality than most of the stuff you get these days.
Town. They relied on their neighbors and community to get used furniture like this side table. I found the exact same one on a furniture resale site. It's worth over $1,000. Definitely
Beautiful.
not something they'd have been able to afford at the time. When I moved into my first apartment in the city, they gave it to me. There's still a little bit of water damage, but it still looks good and it's standing sturdy.
That looks great.
But when I look around at the furniture I bought myself, it's mostly boring IKEA designs, some Eames dupes, and literally outdoor furniture from Amazon. I doubt any of it will last till my next apartment, let alone the next generation.
It comes in pieces. If you have to like re-screw it, you've already ruined it because it's not actually wood.
I was talking about this with my coworker Gerald, and he showed me this beautiful table his grandmother bought in the 90s.
Damn, when did it become rare to actually have a solid wood table? When did this kind of thing stop being accessible to someone like my grandma, average income, and has this like heirloom table? There's nothing rickety on that table at all.
If you bought furniture in the US before the mid-2000s...
Another big thing they do is use a ton of shortcuts using glue and nails instead of the proper joinery, which makes for more problematic viewpoints. Yeah, you see in a lot of older furniture, the part where they do the cool joints with like all the little segments that line up and stuff. And nowadays with IKEA, it's like, well, what if you used a screw here and then those weird like 90-degree fit-in screw things here and everything like jiggles when you rattle it? I'm not
Chances
a woodworker.
are it was made in North Carolina. Both of these tables were, this one by a company called Broyhill, and this one by Henderson, founded by former Broyhill employees. These days, North Carolina's furniture industry isn't doing so well, but when Broyhill was founded in 1926, it was kind of the perfect place to get into the furniture business. The state's first furniture factory had opened in the 1880s in a city called High Point. Then, at the turn of the century, High Point started holding a huge furniture expo, where buyers spent billions of dollars on furnishings to sell in stores across the country. By the 60s, a full 60% of all furniture made in America would come from this 125-mile radius. And by the 80s,
That's crazy.
it had
That's
earned
genuinely
the nickname
crazy.
the furniture capital of America, beating out Chicago, New York City, and even Grand Rapids, Michigan, which was literally called furniture.
I feel like the popularity of Airbnb also tricked us all into believing this IKEA chic shit actually looks good. I mean, it's like an intersection of consumerism, housing being thought of as like disposable, renting culture, just generally like, oh, here's like $600 of IKEA crap to fill up a room, rather than slowly cobbling together a bunch of stuff you care about to make it look good, I'm so tired of minimalist design in general. It's so anti-human. Like, no one actually lives like that. It's all just Instagram shit. Literally, no one lives like that. No one wants to. Not like a living space is not your carefully cobbled together social media, image set of a perfectly clean, unused home with no blemish or wear. It's just...
furniture city at the time. How did they do it? Well, making furniture comes down to 4 things: design, material, production, and transportation. North Carolina furniture makers were
What makes the old growth wood better is the lignin content. Yeah, it's something like that. It's just much, much, much sturdier. I mean, you can feel it. Feel some old wood,
uniquely positioned to have an edge on all 4 of those.
Density.
They didn't spend time or money on
I've heard he's in
design.
trouble
They
lately.
just copied the pieces made by popular furniture companies of the day. And as for materials, half the state is forest, full of hardwood trees: pine, oak, chestnut, and maple, perfect for making sturdy furniture. They found ways to cut production costs by making the furniture with cheaper woods and then covering it in hardwood veneers.
Yeah.
Other ways to cut costs? Those early furniture companies focused on mass producing a few basic items, and they had access to a huge pool of cheap labor willing to do it. After low crop prices in the late 1800s ushered in an agricultural depression, North Carolina's black sharecroppers and poor white tenant farmers quit farming and got better jobs in furniture factories. They were paid about $821 per year, about half of what the furniture workers in the North were paid. Race was a huge factor in keeping wages low. As one economic geographer wrote in 1934, a great black laboring force has always done the
Liberals be like, actually, it was just economic pressures that lowered the wages of the people down in the southern factories. The lowered bargaining power, it's not like you can just make you can just like stop the racism and make the factory owners pay them more. You can't
hard labor of the South and is willing to do so and oftentimes do it better for less wages than those paid the white man. Factory owners also exploited the racial divide to prevent workers from unionizing, allowing them to pay both black and white workers less. Obviously,
wow, it's like this lady watches my streams.
Having such low wages was a big part of why North Carolina could make furniture so much cheaper than New York and Chicago and Michigan. But this exact pattern, the industry moving its center to wherever the cheapest labor was, would repeat itself in less than a century. We'll get to that in a minute.
I want to see them hit it
The other big reason
with a
High
hammer.
Point became America's furniture capital was that it was perfectly located to transport all that furniture to stores across the country. It sat on the highest point of this railroad line. Get it? High Point. This one is important because if there's one enduring truth about furniture, it's that it's a pain in the ass to
They
move.
do it near the end of the video. They know how to hold my attention.
So to buy furniture back then, you'd pick out something from a showroom near you. Then it would be carefully shipped to you by trusted professionals, and you'd probably keep that same piece for decades, maybe even pass it down to your kids. Even as globalization started shifting other industries in the 70s and 80s, High Point remained the center of US furniture manufacturing. Because how would you even ship a king-size bed across the ocean? The way to do
Well, you
it,
can do it,
turns
but
out,
yeah.
is so simple a moose can explain it.
The idea is beautiful Swedish design furniture at our lowest possible price. You pick up your catalog, choose the item, pick it up, take it home, and put it together.
Right. So those beautiful Swedish designs tended to be simple and focus on detachable elements so that everything could fit in a flat pack box. They also used lighter materials like MDF and particle board, which are made from wood chips, sawdust, and shavings, glued together in the shape of a board. Knockdown furniture, as it's also called, can be shipped easily and more efficiently, and the customers save some of the labor costs by putting it together themselves. When IKEA opened its first store in the US in 1985, only 2% of the furniture in the US was flat packed. Within 7 years, it was up to 10%.
It definitely readjusted
They boomed,
what
man.
people expect. No one is expecting a full piece of furniture to arrive at their doorstep fully assembled.
With the rise of flat packed furniture,
I've carved MDF in a CNC and that shit is fucking cancer. Yeah, it must be blowing out like every nanometer, you know? Like you're not going to get a clean line on that at any kind of angle. Okay, but putting it together is fun though. Maybe the first or second time. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it like innately. It's just the fact that it's used for everything is pretty wild. Yeah, very dusty. On behalf of Sweden, sorry. I think the main thing that bothers me, I guess, is that IKEA isn't just the place you go to get furniture. It's a lifestyle store where people will glamorize going there and spending like half a day shopping with the food and everything. And they go, so much of IKEA is like knickknacks to fill your house up with to make it look like an IKEA showroom rather than you just go there for the furniture. Like it's designed to maximize how much stuff you buy, which I guess I kind of forgive for a grocery store, but for sorry, not for groceries, but for furniture, it's like, I don't know. And then people's houses fill up with stuff they don't care about. You know? I feel like your house should be filled up with stuff you kind of care about. That's how I feel with clothing now. Like, I don't want to just, oh, here's my clothes. I want to be like, oh, yeah, I think this is cool for a reason. It makes my neurons active. My almonds are activated. And with furniture, especially with furniture.
North Carolina was starting to lose some of its competitive edge because now it wasn't that important for factories to be located close to the retail stores. Remember how North Carolina's cheap labor made it the manufacturing center of the US?
I do remember that part of the video.
You know who has even cheaper labor than North Carolina? China. That became extremely relevant in 1999 with the US-China World Trade Organization agreement. The US agreed to cut tariffs on Chinese imports, and China would do the same for US imports. This was meant to foster more trade.
We'll be able to export products without exporting jobs.
What actually happened was the opposite of that. Through the 2000s, American furniture makers started moving factories from North Carolina to China, laying off more than 1,000 American workers a year. By 2005, 36% of their sales came from furniture they imported from China. But don't worry, that backfired for them pretty quickly. The Chinese factory owners they contracted with learned how to make American-style furniture and started their own companies competing directly with US manufacturers.
At much
Here's
lower.
how important cheap labor is. Chinese companies could import US lumber, make the furniture, ship it back to the US for assembly, and still afford to sell it for less than American companies could. Within 7 years, 60% of the US furniture market was controlled by Chinese companies. There were 700,000 Americans working in furniture manufacturing in 2000. By 2010, it was down to about 350,000, half the industry gone in a decade. Factory closures.
There are so many fucking ways that you could address this, and the worst way possible is to get like super protectionist over it, and that's the way people always do.
Hit North Carolina the hardest. Entire towns were left unemployed.
That is what we live off of here in this county is furniture.
And in 2007, as if to put salt in the wound, IKEA opened a warehouse just an hour away from High Point. There's one more important part of IKEA's strategy that the Moose didn't mention, but you can see it in this IKEA ad from 2002 that Spike Jonze directed for some reason.
Huh. Okay.
Many of you feel bad for this lamp. That is because you're crazy. It has no feelings, and the new one is much better.
In other words, forget heirlooms for your grandkids, throw away your old furniture, and buy new. And they got people to do it by continuously dropping prices. Get the prices down and you increase sales. We created that demand, not the consumer, a former IKEA
I have never
exec
seen
told
that
The
ad. That
Guardian.
was crazy, man.
Look at this IKEA catalog from 1985, the year the first US store opened. These 4 iconic products are still for sale today, but they cost less now than they did back then. How is
You will not catch my ass sitting in a chair that costs just $69. That is crazy. What the fuck is it made out of? Glue? Spit? Absolutely not.
Is that possible? Before I answer that, I need to tell you about one more thing that disrupted the furniture industry. Racksandstands.com. Never heard of them? Well, you've probably bought something from them, or as they're known today, Wayfair. At first, Racksandstands.com only sold, well, racks and stands.
That makes sense.
But today, Wayfair sells every type of home furnishing. They have a massive catalog of more than 14 million products. Compare that to IKEA's measly 12.
I hate Wayfair. Yeah, they were like trafficking kids or something, right?
But their strategy has remained the same since the Racks and Stands days. Drop shipping Chinese-made furniture with free delivery.
It's important to note that Wayfair doesn't design anything. They're just working with like
Are you fully
over 11.
Herman Miller Aeron build? I'm sitting on a Herman Miller Aeron right now. Yeah, it's really good. It's really nice having a chair that, unlike the shitty ones I got from Office Depot. By the way, I was getting the nicest Office Depot chairs they had, like $600, which would tear apart in no time, uncomfortable. They were just like layers and layers of foam that would crush over time. And not have the same loft or cushion. It's so nice having a chair that just I have literally not touched or adjusted it in like 2 years now. And it does exactly what I want it to, which is it holds my butt.
7,000 suppliers. They're going to take the photos,
Is it mesh? Yes.
add it to their website. They might give it a different
How much
name.
was it? A new Aeron is like $1,300, but there's ways you can get it for cheaper.
Then when a customer goes on to a Wayfair and buys that lamp, they'll go, oh, hey, supplier, I need you to fulfill this order for me. Can you please package it up and deliver it to this person? You don't have to own any of the supply and you can still sell it.
Other direct-to-consumer brands popped up throughout the 2010s. Most of them use a fast fashion business model. Instead of selling a few well-made pieces that could last a lifetime, they have every single micro-aesthetic possible.
Yep.
Wayfair today is actually these 5 sites, each focusing on a different style and price point. And since consumers started focusing more on trends than quality, manufacturers realized they could cut all kinds of corners, cheaper materials and shoddy construction. This is what I wanted to dig into with Coco.
If I had to guess, this was made 70s, maybe 80s.
We chose to compare these 2 tables because they seemed representative.
You still can get vintage furniture online, by the way, if you look.
of their eras. The Wayfair table was made in China. It's shipped partially disassembled in a flat pack box, and it's marketed for its classic style, not to last long, but to match a customer's current aesthetic preference. This table, from Ethan Allen, was likely made in North Carolina. It was probably delivered in a single piece, and it was built with the classic style so that it could be used for generations.
This is obviously a maple table.
Yeah.
What's very exciting is the two-tier level. That's something that you don't really see anymore.
It also has a solid wood drawer.
Modern drawers are always going to be made out of like plywood or particle board.
And that's when there are drawers at all.
Companies are hesitant to put drawers and doors in storage because that just makes the product so much more expensive.
The other thing to note about this drawer is the way it's
From
attached to the
$5 to
table.
$10 to
These
make.
beautiful dovetail joints that you can kind of see as they flare out.
You literally do not see this
Beautiful dovetail joints that you can
in furniture anymore. You literally don't see those. You literally just don't. We don't know how. We've forgotten how to make them. They're not even that hard to make. No, they're not. They're not even that hard to make. But they are more expensive and time consuming than just using like wood screws or something. I don't know.
You can kind of see as they flare out.
Yeah, as is Skype, you're right. As is often the case with anything like, why don't we make it good like we used to? The answer now is Japan. Japan is usually your like go-to place, at the very least, for seeing like what companies are doing to make the good old stuff, but modern. You know, it's all shorts thing Japan, unironically. Yes. No, yeah, literally. There's a reason why Japan is like the global haven for specific hobbyism. And the reason for that is because low rent prices in Tokyo and mixed use zoning allow people to live in little shops, little homes above their shops. That's it, literally. All over Tokyo, and Tokyo is basically like infinitely big, by the way. All over Tokyo, there are guys who live, their home is here with a little kitchen and bed and bathroom, and then you walk downstairs and open a door, and now you're in the shop. And the shop and rent's low, and they can just make stuff there. It is one of the only remaining places in the first world where there are craftsmen abundant.
And that just helps with grip and the joinery, the way that it's connected, making for really solid construction. A really beautiful design feature and lends itself to the
How does Tokyo remain cheap? Good zoning policy, and they keep building new houses.
Durability of the overall piece.
What's the less good way to join?
Oh man, I mean, you can see everything.
Also, their houses are a lot smaller than ours. American home developers will not build a new property unless it's like 2,400 square feet or some insane shit like that.
From it just glued or pinned in place. There's probably 100 different ways that you could make this drawer, but the dovetail would be in the top 5 ways in terms of quality.
Yeah. First up, a materials test.
Okay, so I'm going to start in this one area where you do see a little bit of water damage here. So obviously this looks like this is still the maple. So my guess would be that this is actually solid maple and not veneered at all. I don't know if you saw that water damage that was there, but just by knocking it down, I could very easily sand this entire thing and refinish it, no problem.
Meanwhile, the Wayfair table.
So as you can see, we've got our primer layer underneath. And we also have MDF, a medium density fiberboard. The dust from MDF is far more dangerous than the dust of plywood or any sawdust. It's also really bad for water. Old IKEA rack tables or something that get really bubbly, that's because water has penetrated the MDF layer.
Next, we decided to
test... Best tool used, billionaire spotted. It's probably like $700 tool. Yeah, one of the nice things about real furniture too is that if it gets damaged, you can just sand it down, but you can't sand down the fake shit because then you just expose the particle board and destroy the veneer, you know? Like you can replace veneers, but it just gets increasingly difficult. It's like how with hardwood floors, if there's damage to them, you can just refinish them. Like you can just sand down a hardwood floor like 5-6 times before having to replace the flooring completely. Like a good set of hardwood floors can last centuries.
Test how strong the tables were with a little tensile strength test.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if this next one. Okay. Beautiful. Let's go check out our chunks. First of all, this is really impressive to me. Like super impressive that it really only broke along the seam line, and you can tell that that is maple all the way through. And also like around the apron, like this is still screwed together. The stretchers, you don't see any damage at all. And then
I hate this video because it just makes me realize more of the stuff I use is shit and I can't do anything about it. You literally can. I guarantee you that at local thrift stores, consignment stores, estate sales, whatever, I guarantee you that there are tons and tons and tons. Because again, that's the thing with nice clothes and with nice furniture, it lasts forever. You can find it. Flea markets, Goodwill even. Yeah, you can find it. You can find it. It's all getting snapped up. Not all of it. Not all of it. Yeah, like the influencers are probably snapping up the shit that resells for $1,600, but like not all of it. Habitat for Humanity, the Amish. Yeah, the Amish like old style furniture.
you can see that the MDF top just very easily ripped out of the whole threaded insert. And you can see what the composite is made of.
Would it even be sustainable for all furniture to be made the way it used to? Yeah, because you're not making new furniture. Like, that's the problem with the profit incentive. You make the furniture you need and then you stop, you know? Like, the reason they're making this shittier and cheaper is to facilitate, like, an endless cycle of buying more than you need. But if you just make the furniture and it lasts forever, you're done. It's cheaper, it's better, pass it down to your children, it's fine. It's how we made furniture for millennia, up until like the past 50 or so years.
For the MDF.
It feels soft.
Yeah,
it's like
feels
paper.
almost like paper.
Yeah. You can see similar trends with couches. MDF and particle board instead of solid wood frames, and in place of traditional joinery techniques, they attach the pieces together with brackets so you can assemble it at home. Today's couches also cut corners on leather quality and use lower density foam inside. It's no wonder couches are less comfortable and don't last as long. This is also how IKEA manages to keep lowering the price on the same item, and the strategy works. Today, IKEA reports selling one Billy bookcase every 5 seconds.
That's great,
and
man.
making one every 3 seconds. All these
this is not needed. There are not that many. You don't need to make that many. There are not that many people that need bookshelves. Also, these things are trash, man. If you put even a little bit of weight on the side and push them down, these things come apart in no time.
trends have caused furniture to get cheaper relative to the price of other consumer goods. Today, you can furnish an apartment for less than the cost of 1 month's rent in some places. And I think it's important to say here, for a lot of us, fast furniture is our only option. As housing prices skyrocket and wages stay stagnant, most of us can't afford new high-quality furniture, and looking for stuff secondhand is time-intensive. So until we solve these issues, fast furniture probably isn't going anywhere. That was especially evident during the pandemic. During the lockdown, I started working from home and bought a desk from Wayfair, and I wasn't the only one. Wayfair was up 50% in customers.
When I first started streaming all the way back from Humboldt County, United States, California, Earth, I did so. There was a little IKEA table that I was using to hold my computer on, and I swear to God, it held up as best as it could. The day that I left, the day that I moved from there, I picked up my PC case, and the thing collapsed out underneath it. The only thing that was holding it together was all the weight of the PC tower pressing down on one side of the it was on top, but it was placing a bunch of weight on the more stable wall side of the table. When I lifted it up, it slumped to the side and then broke. So that was cool.
Fast furniture hasn't even reached its peak, but it's already led us to dystopian places, like Amazon announcing a $20 couch. You know that thing's gonna end up in a landfill within a year. Now, to sum things up, I'm gonna turn to an unexpected source.
North Carolina, you were the furniture capital of the world, but now so much of that business has been stolen from you, and it's made in China and other places. You buy some of these chairs that they sell you now, they break after about 2 months. People are laying on the floor. And then on top of it all, you
Name
get
drop
sued
IKEA.
because they fell out of a chair at a hotel.
That sounds a little too specific to be hypothetical. At first glance, this narrative sounds really similar to the one I've told you. But
I'm really glad they have this bit at the end here to explain that, like, fascist protectionism isn't the answer to this, because it's not. Literally, Trump serves the oligarchs. The oligarchs are the ones that moved all of the manufacturing to China. Trump had a whole presidential term to fix the outsourcing of jobs. Did he? No, he didn't. It didn't happen. He said he'd do it. He lied. He's never stopped companies from doing that.
They do differ in some key ways, so let's take it one part at a time. First, it's true that North Carolina furniture jobs moved overseas, but it's worth noting that these were still decisions made by CEOs. If more companies...
Bad for consumers. Problem is consumers are choosing the cheap shit. They could choose to buy quality products. No, because we're still dealing with the scale of production here. As cheap shit dominates the market, the more expensive stuff gets more expensive. Nowadays, if you want a bespoke suit in the United States, it's going to cost you $4,000 to $5,000 to get a good one custom made by a local tailor. 70 years ago, obviously it would cost less because of inflation, but proportional, like accounting for inflation, it would cost far less. Everyone had it. Like, that's the problem. When cheap shit runs abound, everything except the cheap shit gets pushed out of business. They get like kicked out of the running, and they only appeal to a small group of hardcore auteurs who really appreciate the good stuff. But that's not enough of a market to sustain mass adoption and low prices. It's like this with clothes too. Nowadays, if you want to buy a Levi's jacket or a Levi's style denim trucker jacket that is equivalent in construction and quality to the ones made in the United States in the 1960s, you have to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Not have to, I suppose. But if you want to like really hit on that quality, yeah. And that was just a regular Levi's jacket. They weren't expensive back then. That was like an Americana classic. It was commonly millions and millions and millions of them were made. But now you have to go to like Japanese companies doing period reproductions, which is insane. Oh, you can find stuff that looks like the Levi's denim jacket of the 60s all over the place. Hell, Levi's still makes it, but now, made in China, cheap quality crap, comes apart easy. That's what I mean. You can't just expect consumers to have good taste. You need to actively protect things that matter. And you know what? I'll say it. I'm protecting culture. I mean that. Culture should be allowed to grow and change, but this isn't culture changing. This is corporations acting like sharks, fucking everything up for everyone so 5 people can make more money. Oh, now everything's lower quality and all the good versions of the things are 20 times as expensive as they used to be. No, this isn't an authentic cultural shift.
Had prioritized their workers over profits during that transition, the impact could have been less severe on American workers. The other claim Trump makes is that furniture got worse because of this move to China. But just because your furniture was made in Asia, it doesn't mean it's inherently worse.
That's true.
When you visit these factories, there's like beautiful craftsmen and women bringing
there are lots of really good factories and craftsmen in China, like China, not just Hong Kong, but like mainland China. And bad manufacturers in the United States. Los Angeles has sweatshops that sometimes produce stuff of really low quality. They get away with, made in America, but they're made in America by like undocumented immigrants who are being forced to stitch the, 3-panel hoodies of like 500 hoodies a day or something.
Products to life and giving them individual care and attention.
Plus, a single factory is probably making high, medium, and low quality furniture.
All the furniture companies are sourcing from like the same 10 major places.
So Wayfair stuff, Restoration Hardware stuff could be being made by the same
Crate and
factory.
Barrel, yeah, they could all be made by the same factory very easily.
And what you don't hear Trump talk about is what happens when those retailers set super low prices. It puts the burden on factories to meet those price points.
The factories are in bidding wars against each other.
Right.
You're sending out one spec and sometimes you're getting 2 different samples from 2 different places.
Wondering though, if we make quality craftsman furniture more accessible and therefore cheaper, will the craftsmen not get into financial trouble if they can't ask those same prices? As like IKEA today? No, people are just going to have to live with it. You don't get a $20 bed frame. I'm sorry, go to hell. No one ever got that throughout all of human history. You're not getting it today. It's cheap bullshit. No. And also, people don't win out in the long run over this. You want cheap shoes? Fine, but you're replacing them every 6 months. You want cheap furniture? Fine, but you're replacing it every 6 months. You want cheap clothing? Fine, but you're replacing it every 6 months. And you never feel good wearing it. You feel like shit. You develop back problems because your shit-ass bed, shit-ass mattress, shit-ass shoes, shit-ass couch, shit-ass sofa, shit-ass chairs. Everything is shit. Your life is shit. You have nothing. It's over. It's over. Yeah, I think people could stand to save up a little bit for a nice piece of furniture. And we're talking about changes that would put more money in the hands of these people, too. Like, the reason people feel like they need their little $20 couches or whatever is because of the same economic extraction that has created these conditions of artificial manufactured obsolescence.
And oftentimes you're going with the cheapest one.
Only one person can win that contract. That's how you end up with videos like these, showing furniture workers in Vietnam brought in to eat, sleep, and work at the factory.
The only people positively benefiting are people who are like C-level executives who basically show investors, oh, look at how much profit I've driven.
Trump claims to have the solution for the entire American furniture industry: tariffs.
All of your furniture makers are going to come back and come back bigger and stronger and better than ever before.
That's an interesting promise, because Trump had already imposed higher tariffs on China during his first term, and Biden left those tariffs in place, so they've been in effect for nearly a decade now, and still furniture jobs have continued to decline in North Carolina. Chinese manufacturers simply moved their factories to countries that aren't subject to US tariffs, like
Yep, they move over to like Malaysia or Bangladesh or whatever, yeah, to get around them.
Vietnam. The other reason tariffs aren't going to bring jobs back for US furniture work.
Capital is international. You can't fix this by like, oh, you know, it's like playing whack-a-mole and there's a hole in every country. You know? It doesn't fix things.
Is that tariffs are just one small part of a furniture company's overhead costs.
Human labor is the most valuable thing on the planet. It's always the question of where can we find the cheapest human labor.
So the factories will just follow wherever the cheapest labor is. Wages have always been the driving force behind the furniture industry's move.
Well, the biggest cost is the surplus labor extracted by the corporation that's profit-seeking, actually. I'm being glib. That's not always true.
First from Michigan, Chicago, and New York to North Carolina, then to China, and now to Vietnam and other countries. And what effect will tariffs have on consumers? Well, furniture companies claim tariffs will force them to raise prices, but we should be skeptical of that narrative as well. IKEA's strategy of lowering prices—
Also, who the fuck cares if IKEA's prices are higher? What do you bump that up 50%? You're still paying nothing, you know?
To increase consumer demand shows that their prices can and will change regardless of various countries' trade policy. Tariffs are neither a magic bullet to bring back jobs, nor are they the only reason that you might pay higher prices. The reason why nearly 500,000 American furniture workers lost their jobs is the same reason your couch sucks. Choices made by modern multinational corporations to prioritize profits at the expense of workers and consumers. So, if we want to make America great at domestic furniture production again, how do we do it? Well, North Carolina's furniture industry is not dead. High Point Market still brings in $6.73 billion into the state each year. That's the equivalent of 4 Super Bowls. And big CEOs can follow the example of people like John Bassett, who fought tooth and nail to keep his furniture business in the US, saving hundreds of jobs. He actually got a lot of hate for doing that from other furniture manufacturers, Washington lobbyists, and right-wing American economists. Beth Macy, who profiled Bassett for her book Factory Man, says
Isn't that insane? Trump's like, we're going to bring American manufacturing back. A manufacturing factory stays in the United States, and he's attacked by the right wing. I wonder why. It's almost like the real goal is to facilitate mass wealth extraction, and the populist rhetoric is just a way of keeping people, like, you know, focusing on the jangling keys.
One economist told her, in reality, we shouldn't be making bedroom furniture anymore in the United States. But Bassett believed those jobs had value and that they were important.
I think that's just bullshit. That's just so stupid, man. That
into
idea.
his community. For workers in the Piedmont region, furniture manufacturing was a good, decent paying job that people had pride in. If America is going to play a role in furniture manufacturing again, we need more people like Bassett who value both quality products and good jobs, instead of pitting consumers and workers against each other. As for my coffee table search, I ended up finding this one at a yard sale.
That looks really nice.
It was made in North Carolina in the early 2000s by a company named Drexel, and it's in perfect condition. But the best part is I got it for $20.
I'm telling you guys, it takes a little bit of work, but how much furniture do you really need? Like, people are like, oh, it takes time to find my thing. Once you find the furniture, like, that's it. You've got it for life. You have that for life now. Vosh just literally made the just move argument that Destiny makes, but for poor people's furniture. Incomprehensible reach. I don't know what psychological whatever is going on that motivated you to run to that one, but like you might as well have made that statement while I was in the bathroom. You could have talked to the chair, and that would have been about as apropos. Unfathomable.
Thanks for watching The Classroom.
Thank you for sharing. Genuinely though, More Perfect Union is a phenomenal channel. I enjoyed this video a lot. I'm glad that I saved it for stream. Hopefully they're not mad at me. I love you. Moi. Thank you, More Perfect Union. Thank you, Sonia, I assume, because you're the producer. And for a project like this, I assume the producer would be also the one who's in front of the camera. Thank you.